What's going on, everyone? I'm assuming that if you click this video, you're looking to try and use jerk blocks in your training, whether you're a beginner or an advanced lifter. Now, jerk blocks are not just for beginners. There's a bunch of cool, awesome things we can do to help beginners learn technique, build better overhead positions. But we can also really use these in advanced weightlifting programming for snatches, cleans, jerks, and even maybe improving your pulls and your squats. So in this video, I'm going to cover first how to even use them, make sure you're setting them up properly so you don't break them, and then also go over some of my favorite uses for beginners as well as my favorite uses for advanced lifters and tell you how to program those in your workouts based on your needs and your goals for that program. Okay, so first things first, we always want to make sure that we have something called the topper. And the topper block here, as you can see, it's not hollow underneath. So this is called a topper block, or sometimes a 2-inch or 2.5-inch block, because it goes on top of the bigger ones. You can see we have different sizes here. But what this helps is that underneath this one, if I lift it up, these bottom ones are more hollow inside. So when we're dropping weights, if we weren't using a topper and we dropped on this, you might be okay with 10, 20, 30, 60 kilo, but as you start getting heavier with 100, 150, maybe you're doing heavy jerks on it, all that pounding is going to put a lot of wear and tear on the wood, because the wood inside, as you can see, it's hollow. It only has a single ply right here, a piece of plywood there. That's all it is. And in these bigger ones, there's even less spacing. So you want to make sure that you have the topper block on there, because these are not cheap. A full set off a Rogue is going to run you about $1,200, right? This is about 48 inches. We actually have a little more than a full set because we have multiple setups for different beginners and stuff. But you want to make sure you use this to preserve the life, because when you use this, a pair of these are only $90 to replace if you have to, which these should last hypothetically forever if you take care of them. So making sure you're using the topper blocks, no matter what you're doing, you always want to have a topper block on there. So what's really cool about these blocks is that they come in all kinds of different sizes. So you can see here, this is a 12-inch block. We have two 10-inch blocks, and then we have a 6-inch. That's just kind of the recipe we like. However, in the past, I've had 12, 12s, and 6s. Whatever it is, I think when you're looking to do have a wide array, right? This is great for like pulls above the knee, the 10 and the 12. If you want pulls from below the knee, like snatches or cleans, like block snatches, block cleans, I like a 6 with a topper. But I think a full set, you probably want at least 40 inches of total height, right? So we got 12, 10, 10, and 6, and then I have my 2, 2 1/4. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. That's enough for me as a 5'11" lifter. I can do jerks because you also have to account for the bar itself and your dip. So I like about 40 inches. That's going to suit most people. If you have somebody that's taller, maybe having an extra 6-inch, if they're over 6'5", 6'4", that way they don't have to come out of a partial front squat to do a jerk. But that's kind of your full set. And they're just stackable, right? They just stack on top of each other. You can interchange them, so they're much like a Lego stacking block, so you can really customize this. So that's why I like having different variety, as long as they add up to the sum. So now I'm gonna go into some of my favorite ways to integrate this into your training, whether you're beginner, intermediate, or advanced, and start to specialize using the jerk blocks, not only for jerks, but for snatches, cleans, squats, and pulls. Okay, so as the name implies, the jerk blocks is great for doing jerks. Now you can do power jerks, split jerks, overhead squat jerks, whatever you'd like to do. The biggest thing is setting this up, right? So at first glance, it looks like it might work, right? I got the bar there, clearly have enough overhead space. The biggest thing here though is that when we do this, we want to make sure that when we hit our dip, right? Our dip is usually anywhere from 3 to 6 inches. Lifters can vary, but when we take our dip, you can see that I hit the block. That's not good. So what I would simply have to do based on the lifter, and again, my dip's probably about 4 inches or so. I'm not a huge dip person, much more of like an elastic dipper. But I would take the 6-inch off for myself. That way I can dip clearly, I can jerk, and I can drop. Now say if I was 7 inches taller, maybe I was 6'6", a huge tall lifter, and this is the tallest I had, I'd be fine. I could also add blocks if I needed to. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take these off, and we're going to show you some of the different jerk variations you can do. Okay, so I have now changed the blocks here, and sometimes I find it easiest, like when I'm setting up the block height to my sternum or like my upper abs is usually kind of a good starting point because that gives me enough clearance, you know, to get to the bottom of my dip, which here is about 6 or 7 inches from the bottom of the plate to the top. That's about all I need with my jerk. So this is a great setup for me. So now we'll look at this, some jerk options we have. We can do split jerks, we can do power jerks, we can do squat jerks, we can do behind the neck jerks, which behind the neck jerks are great with this. And really I like jerk blocks for all types of overhead, mainly because of 2 reasons. First is that when we're putting it up overhead, if we miss a rep in a normal jerk, it's a pain in the butt, right? You gotta pick it up off the ground, you gotta clean it back up to the rack, and when you're doing heavy weights, it's especially a pain in the butt. So with this, let's say I jerk, miss it out front, I know exactly what I did, I can reload, get myself set up, hit my jerk, and I bring it down. It makes it much easier to reload after any missed reps. It's also a great coaching tool because when somebody misses it, you can stay within that time frame where, hey, the body knows exactly what you did. Let's fix it right on the spot instead of having to clean it up, take a couple extra minutes. Another great thing about this, and this is really important as I'm getting older, just turned master's lifter, and even with my heavier lifters, as well as even in beginners, it can really be tricky sometimes to bring, especially the behind the neck jerk variations down, but also in front. I notice sometimes you get a lot of like elbow pain, tendonitis, especially in heavy peaking blocks. So I like using jerk blocks because I don't have to bring the weight down. I can drive a bunch of weight up, not have to worry about bringing it down, getting all that loading and impact on my body as I lower it down. So it's great because if I'm doing anything from behind the neck, maybe I'm doing snatch push press, instead of having to bring it down, boom, get hit, right? Obviously we want to control it, and I'll be able to do these from the rack, but maybe I'm doing snatch balances, right? And then I can just drop it down, I can reset, and I can go again. So that's another benefit of your jerk blocks. So now I'm going to rip through a bunch of jerk variations and why you should be doing them, whether you're a beginner or an advanced lifter. So first one right out of the gates is a split jerk. The split jerk is the most common jerk used in most competitions, across the board, even internationally. Some nations do the squat jerk, so I think it's important to be able to do all jerk variations. They all have their place. Whatever one allows you to jerk the most weight in competition, that's the one you should be doing, not necessarily the one that looks the coolest. So, split jerks, pretty self-explanatory when you're doing these, right? You can go from in front, you want to dip, you want to split, and then you can drop it straight down. Next one we have is the behind the neck variation of the split jerk. This is great when you're looking to really overload the jerk, get more confident under heavier loads. Because it starts on your back, you don't need to necessarily worry about driving it from front up and back. It's kind of already in the right spot, right over your traps. So all you would do, drive vertical, we're right there. Again, this is a great one. I typically could jerk 5, maybe 10% more than my regular jerk from behind the neck. And that's great too. If somebody has, you know, a lot of beating up through here, maybe it's heavy cleans, a front squat cycle, you can do a lot of behind the neck work to improve that overhead and that strength. Next one, same thing, power jerk. You can go from the front or the back. A lot of the same benefits from the front and the back. I like the back because it forces a nice vertical drive. But the power jerk's really cool because you can't split, and maybe you can recover into your positions from a poor dip and the balance there. You really can't do too much in the power jerk except drive it straight up, be powerful, meet that bar, we're not jumping around. That's your power jerk. I think that power jerks, typically people could do less with them, but it just depends on if you're a good split jerker. But I use power jerks to increase my leg drive, make sure that I'm staying more vertical because you have a little more margin for error in the split in terms of front and back and your balance. So that's how I use the power jerk. Lastly, we're going to go with the squat jerk. The squat jerk, it's very popular in certain countries. That's kind of their main style of jerking. Now, I use a squat jerk even when I split jerk, maybe in lighter blocks, when I'm trying to improve the dip and drive. I do notice that it has some good carryover to the overhead squat and overhead snatch in terms of building better back stability, opening up the shoulders. I personally can't do as much as like a split jerk. Maybe I could do 80, 75, 80%, but I'll do it sometimes in warm-ups or even before heavier jerks just to kind of activate the back. So it looks like this. You can go again from your front rack or your back rack, and we're right there. So those are kind of your 3 main jerk variations, but you also have 6 because you have every variation you can do from the front, you can also do from the back. So next we're going to jump into some snatch variations that you can do from the overhead position, and then we'll go into the cleans. Okay, so we've used all the jerk variations we can. Now we're going to go into my 3 favorite exercises to build a better overhead positioning in the snatch. And that's going to be your behind the neck snatch push press, your snatch balance, and your overhead squat. And I like doing these from blocks because if you miss a rep, or if you make the rep and it's just a pain in the butt to bring it down behind your neck, why have that extra wear and tear, especially at heavier loads, or if you're training frequently, you want to kind of mitigate a lot of that that loading and that stress to allow yourself to recover. That's why I love jerk blocks. So when we do jerk blocks, the biggest thing, you just want to make sure that these aren't too narrow, because when you're in the bottom of the squat, you just want to make sure you have enough space so you're not going to smack your forearm on there. But when we go here, I like a lot of behind the neck snatch presses with a push press kind of leg drive right through there. At lighter weights, I might bring it down as if I was in a rack. And then at heavier weights, I'll drive it up, I'll drop it, and I'll recycle just like that. That's great for just building general upper body strength, stability, getting that action there to really improve that snatch and needing the bar in the overhead position. I'll progress this and I'll go into maybe an overhead squat or a snatch balance. So overhead squats are great here. You can kind of load it up as needed. Whether you want to jerk it up or push press it up, and then we just nice and low, and then when you're done, you drop it. Overhead squat obviously is something that you need to get better at. You need to make sure that you're confident in that bottom position. I see so many lifters, beginners and advanced lifters, who shy away from sitting in the bottom of that. So I like pause overhead squats. I've saved, my heaviest snatch to date is 122 kilo, so what's that, 268-ish pounds. I had to basically sit down there, hold it, save it, and stand up. A lot of missed lifts happen because people don't spend enough time in the bottom of that overhead squat. So that's a great thing about this, is you can get a lot of great training in. Don't have to worry about dropping on the ground. Don't have to worry about bringing heavy overhead squats down on your back, especially as you're fatigued. It's not worth doing that. Last one here is our snatch balance. So kind of taking them both together. What's nice here is because this is a fast explosive lift, sometimes we miss them. And that's okay, because we're in jerk blocks, so we can quickly reload. So we're just right through there, right? If I miss the lift, oh shoot, no harm, no foul. I come back underneath, I fix what I need to fix, and that's that. So that's the beauty of jerk blocks. And this is really something that as an intermediate going to the advanced level, you're trying to really drive up your overhead strength. I've noticed heavy snatch balances, not so much heavy overhead squats. I really think that most people, if you can overhead squat 105%, 110% of what you'd like to snatch, then you probably have enough in the reserve. But being able to snatch balance, 105% of your max snatch or goal snatch, I like that as a prerequisite. Heavy snatch push presses, all of that to just build overhead strength and stability, which can have some carryover to your jerk. So now we're going to go into like the other uses when we're doing more like block pulls, block snatches, block cleans, and how we can use different heights to address certain issues. Okay, so I'm using the 10-inch block with a 2-inch stopper. So this is going to give me a block snatch, block clean, or just a pull. For me, it's going to have you land right above my knee. So we've got to have 3 different positions. Primarily, we want to use when we're doing the blocks. We go below the knee, above the knee, and somewhere on the mid-thigh, mid to high thigh, depending on your contact point. So this is really kind of my middle ground, and I really love this position for a couple reasons. A, it really works on improving that second pull, helping us develop that speed strength, and then also allowing us to fixate and get underneath the bar quicker because we don't have a long runway from the floor. We basically have to pull and get under those loads. So it helps build that confidence, get under there, be faster under the bar. So you can do this with a snatch like this. We can go from a power. We can go from a full snatch. Then we can also even bring it into the clean. Same idea, power. Drive it through the ground and our full. We can also add a jerk. We can do a bunch of stuff. That's what's cool about these jerk blocks. So again, that's above the knee positioning. What we're going to show you next is the below the knee. And the reason I would do below the knee is just to really help address, maybe, for instance, for me, I kind of have a slight arm pull sometimes right there. So teaching myself to kind of stay tight in that position, use my legs out of there, start addressing that first pull. Okay, so the last variation here is below the knee. Some reasons why we want to do below the knee, maybe we're transitioning them from a higher position down to the floor. Allows us to do a little bit more technique with that first pull. Because it's below my knee, I can't just open my hip. I got to learn to stay over the bar, pull those knees back a little more, and then get that transition, knees back under the bar, fully extend vertically. This is also a great one. I love using blocks during heavy squat cycles because lower back is getting a lot of wear and tear with squatting and like the full lift from the floor. So if I'm doing that and I want to get extra technique work in, again, the same reason we want to use jerk blocks to minimize wear and tear and just allow us a little more recovery. We can use the low blocks or even the high blocks to just minimize the necessary pulling from the floor from every rep and bringing it back down. Those little things add up along the way, especially when you start getting more advanced, start lifting a lot of heavy weight, frequently, all the time. These are little ways that you can help give an athlete a little bit of a break, if you will, while still working heavy and make sure we're progressing. So just like the higher blocks, we have all of our options available to us. We have our power snatch, staying over. With here, we want to make sure that we're kind of pulling our knees back and then getting back underneath. So that was your full snatch. We have your power clean, again, staying over. Full clean. You can also do jerks right from here. So you have all those options available to you. All right, so there you have it. That is how we use jerk blocks in training, whether you're a beginner, advanced lifter, or a coach looking to program these. You can program a lot of these very similar to how you would the full lifts. Again, it's just the added benefit of kind of knowing where to use your block heights, knowing how to minimize that wear and tear, whether it's coming down from the overhead positioning or using blocks for snatches and cleans to really minimize that stress in the pull. You can do all that. So if you guys like this video, make sure you share, make sure you like, comment below. Let me know what you think. And until next time, let's get lifting.